Welcome everybody to the Sudcast. It's been a while, but I'm back. And this is the first podcast episode. So I hope you guys are doing awesome. And yeah, where have I been though? So I just came back from the trip to Portugal, and yeah, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a couple months now, and yeah, a lot of people have been asking when is it gonna come out, and I've just been trying to, get the audio situation fixed and get the proper mic set up, and now I got, a pretty decent mic set up, but unfortunately I'm not gonna be able to have video and sound, so this was one of the things that I was conflicted by, I would say, because I wanted to make this podcast available also for watching. So I'm putting it on YouTube, I'm putting it on iTunes, but I would love for this to be able to, that you can actually see the video too, but this is not going to be possible for at least the first 3 episodes. It's going to be only audio format like this, and eventually I'm going to be able to, the thing is that right now I could, boom this mic on top of the camera, but the audio will be really crappy because you're sitting about 1 meter away from the camera. So I don't know what that is in, for all you Americans with feet and all this, but you sit a proper distance away from the mic, and you're not gonna get the same kind of sound for a podcast as you would when you do it like this. So now I can position the mic the way that I need to, and but I won't be able to actually film it. So here we are though. First podcast episode. So I actually have a few things written down that I kind of want to dive into, but really let's just do it classic podcast style. So one of the things that I wrote down was lessons from India, and I was in India for I think 8 months, so it felt like a year, and I mean, it was so interesting. The thing about India is, people talk about, there's so much, it's such a powerful, you see a rich guy in a suit, and then right next to him you see people starving, and you see insane amounts of poverty, and you see, this kind of thing. So yeah, that's the thing about India for sure, is it's hard to describe, because that is something that I saw there. I saw that poverty, and I saw the difference, but most of the time I didn't see anybody who's rich. I didn't see rich people walking around on the street on the daily. I didn't see that often. Actually, most of the time I saw humble, really humble, what you would probably consider, most people would probably consider poor people, right? I saw people who didn't have much. And when I first came to India, I actually met up with a couple friends in the airport that I just talked to on Instagram. They hit me up and we talked, and we found out that we were actually gonna go to India, both of us. And we also, the crazy thing is that we also found out that we were actually gonna go at the exact same freaking day. So we were like, yeah, so when are you going? And I was like, I'm going tomorrow, or like in 2 days or whatever, you know. And she was like, yeah, I'm also going at that same day. And we were like, what the frick? And then, you know, we were like, what time are you going? And it's like, I think there was like a 2 or 3 hour gap, but it was still, you know, in the afternoon, so I would arrive a couple hours before or whatever. But we get there and we go to a village in Himachal Pradesh, in the Himalayas. And but this is, I can't remember the name of the village because it was so far out, but it's not that far from, I think, I can't remember the name of the closest town, but it was not in Kasol or anything like that. I went there afterwards, but you know, in the village, first impression was that these people are intentionally living. You know, they grew their own veggies, they had everything they needed. They took me in, and they, you know, I obviously told them, you know, I've been staying here for a week, and I want to pay you guys or give you, you know, money for you know, letting me stay here and everything. But they refused to. They were just like, you know, no, this is, and that's how, you know, Indian people are. So maybe to you it sounds a little bit like, oh, this fucking guy, you know. But you know, you can force them, and like, here is the freaking money, and I'm gonna give you the money, but they won't accept it a lot of the time, you know. That's just Indian culture, is this insane generosity, this, you know, giver culture, this you know, so there's nothing to do, right? These people are so fucking kind. And I ended up staying there for like a week or something, and my impression was that, you know, these people are truly, a lot of them are intentionally, you know, spiritually. Also, a lot of them are just as not woke as we are, but, you know, really, most people there, they are intentionally being what you would consider poor. They just give up stuff, you know, and they are just so interesting. India is so interesting to me, and I say that as unpretentiously as I can, because there's a lot of hype around India and a lot of hipster, weird sort of like, I'm going to India and this kind of thing. But I mean sincerely that, and I wouldn't say like such a, you know, controversial statement if I wasn't being sincere, because the most hipster thing you could say is just like, oh yeah, you know, people are just so poor and it fucking sucks. But that's not my impression of it. And I knew this before I went, that there's an intentionality, you know, a non-materialism, a I don't need stuff, you know, kind of mentality. In Tibetan Buddhism, in Hinduism, there's a, you know, profound amount of giving up material things in order to pursue enlightenment, right? And that's, I think a lot of Westerners, they go there and they come back and they say, you know, this is so poor, but I really feel like this is, you know, not, they have what they need. And that was such a beautiful thing for me to see, is that everybody weren't starving, but people were happy with what they had, you know. And a lot of people have opportunities, you know, you make your own way in life. And there was, of course, people who were actually starving. But my general sort of impression was that people weren't, that they weren't suffering. And this was just, I think, the most beautiful part of it. Because, you know, what led me to India was a spiritual pursuit, and, you know, having given up so much materialism myself and being a minimalist, and, you know, I was living with nothing when I was in India, you know, and I had almost no money, and I just kind of, you know, walked around to find sadhus, and yeah, it was a beautiful time. And I think that was just the biggest lesson is, it's profound. And it kind of leads me into being present. What I mean, I could have been on Instagram while I was in India, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to take that sacred time and make it, fucking. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? Um, which kind of leads me into fake spiritual people, right? Jesus, I mean, there's a lot of fake spiritual people, a lot of fake hippies in India. And I remember like days like like I was buying, I think, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna to go to a cafe and read this book, and I was like, I have come back from Kasol and come back from some of the mountain areas, and I was in Rishikesh for like 6 months, and this was, I think, after about 2 months of being in Rishikesh, that I was kind of like, I really just cannot go back to this. I can't go back to this cafe anymore. I can't go back to all of these crowded, fake, pretentious hippie areas. And I really think that it was kind of insane at one point. Like, you try to go to a cafe, and it's just all. But so there's a lot of hype about India, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, is that there's a lot of hype, and when you really are there for a long time, you see that there's just as many fake hippie types as you would find in maybe LA or something, without saying too much. But those areas, they attract those people who just want a selfie or whatever. Which kind of leads me into one of the other things, which is, providing space for others, As in those situations, you kind of want to take the high road, because it's so easy to be, and I certainly did that, and I always do that, because I think objectively you always kind of analyze yourself and you think that you are better than other people, because in your mind you're like, well, I'm not taking selfies in front of Ganga every day, I'm actually doing the work, etc. So I'm the better spiritual seeker, right? But it is important to kind of take the high road and not judge, and kind of provide space for people to, because as annoying and frustrating as it is when you're there for spiritual purposes and you see all these like fake people coming to just get a yoga certificate, just take selfies, and that kind of triggers your authenticity, right? As easy as it is to just judge and be like, I'm better, it is important to kind of provide space for that. But I think in providing space for people in a most authentic way possible, it's when you want to really provide space, I think it's just about seeing, like, that people are trying. Like, I've always thought that rather than judging these like fake spiritual people, I'm thinking like, what is fake? People are like, in these times they're so crazy. Like, to me it's so much more satisfying seeing people who are actually trying and who think that spirituality is cool enough for it to be a trend. To me, that is like admirable. I think that's freaking awesome, that it's come to a point where, sex and, I don't know, like temporary shit, that isn't as attractive anymore, but something like spirituality can be a trend. I think that in itself is pretty cool. So it's fairly easy, I think, to provide space for others. To be a little bit fake when you have the realization that these people are just trying, they're trying actually to be spiritual, and that's worth just as much as being, knowing what you're talking about. It's like sometimes pretending to know what you're talking about and, trying. I mean, what is more sincere and authentic than just trying and being so bad at being fake that that everybody around you knows it. At least they aren't trying to hide that they're fake, because you can't really. That's what it means to be fake, right? Is that when you embody inauthenticity, you are not being authentic. So therefore, the people around you can sense that you aren't authentic. Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it makes sense. I just don't know how to explain it, but anyways, providing space for others, providing space, and yeah, this is really the reason why I wrote down stuff, because I've been putting this podcast off for 2 months now, and if I don't write anything down, like usually I've been really good at writing, and flowing, and also writing stuff for Instagram and everything. I've always been very quick to just kind of do something, and it already always feels very authentic. But when it comes to, podcasting and this kind of thing, I've really been like, I don't know if I can just flow for an hour, so I kind of have to have my notes in order to have something to talk about. But yeah, it's a new format for me. It's kind of interesting because it's so long, but yeah, this is the first time that I'm actually trying it, to film a podcast. So let's see how this goes and what kind of setup I'm able to get, and let's see, what the vibe is, because it kind of just depends really, because I'm not going to be traveling for a while. Next thing I'm going to do, I don't even know, I'm going to do something permanent. I'm going to try to do something really, really big next time. It could be, moving to India on a permanent basis, but yeah, I don't know. Right now, when I was traveling in Portugal, I was like, right now, I just want to get home. Like, and that's the first time in, I think, many, many years that or at least the past two years of traveling, or more than that. It's the first time in that long I've been, right now, I really just kind of just want to get back, I felt just tired of being on the road, even though I was, working on a farm and all this. I just think intention is probably something that's so important, and that's something that I brought with me to India. And through all the, adversities, is that what you say? I can't even remember. Through all the, struggles that you go through when you travel, which people don't talk about, right? But there's a lot of craziness that happens when you travel. Through all of that, right, the thing that kind of maintains your sanity and makes you, have I don't want to say routine, but have, a spiritual structure, and, keep your intention. The thing that really makes you able to keep that is if you have a natural, I think, inclination, and that I'm going to go to India to seek spirituality, I'm going to go there, etc., to do these things. And then, you aren't led so much astray by all the mind's thoughts, or the stuff that happens along the way, because there is a lot of, just, the kind of chaos of traveling is pretty insane. So it's going to be a lot of changes constantly. And when you have that grounding of knowing that this is what I came for, you aren't so much led astray. But when you travel for many years and you kind of go everywhere, I think you can lose that intention a little bit. And for me, it has kind of become like a thing where the thing is that I ask myself, and I'm pretty clear about what I want, right, in my life. And, meditation and yoga, teaching these things and, living a yogic lifestyle has always been my priority. And that's what I did in India. That's what I did in Nepal. And also in Costa Rica and in Peru. But no, I'm not saying that I wasn't in tune with those things, but I'm trying to say this as a lesson for everybody too. That in general, and you can relate to this if you have traveled full time, thing is that when you do that and you forget a little bit of what really matters to you, you just lose a little bit of that intention. And when you're in that situation, you start to feel like you aren't as aligned, and in that way you just feel like I need to reprioritize. I need to give myself space to at least find comfort in at least I'm focusing all my energy on what I want. I'm meditating. I'm going fully cave meditation mode right now, because this is what I came here to do, right? And I came to share, and I came to not stress myself out by pursuing YouTube and vlogging and traveling the world constantly. While those things can be great, it's also kind of like, was that really my OG intention? Or is this just some shite that I've been gathering along the way, sort of, It's kind of beautiful, but it's also like, what am I doing, And I don't think that anybody should feel confused in those ways, because I've talked to a lot of travelers, and that's a very normal thing. I mean, most people don't last as long as I've done, or a lot of my friends have done traveling. Most people don't actually last very long, Most people, they travel for 4 months and they're like, fuck this, even backpackers, young people, and damn, I sound like a boomer, but people in their 20s, people don't last long traveling. But you meet so many great people traveling, and it's awesome. And it's definitely a difference between, I think it's kind of semantics sometimes. Is that what you call it? It's kind of just a matter of words, a choice of words that you use, because traveling versus actually spending long time in a place can be two very, very different things. And again, the intention can make so much difference, because if I didn't have that intention when I was there in India, sincerely, I'm telling you, I would have just, been wasting my time there on Instagram, or taking selfies, or like, smoking too much or something, because that is very common there, is that you just kind of fall into this like stoner paradise kind of vibe. And I did that for a long time, but you have to really be careful about that. So I really actually recommend you don't smoke if you go to India. You can actually do it, but I would recommend doing it in those places where it's also kind of legal, like I believe Rajasthan and stuff, and kind of avoid doing it in those areas where people smoke the most, because that's where you get dragged down into that stoner, thing, that also can happen back home if you hang out with a lot of smokers, right? So in India, if you go, I would recommend Rishikesh, you don't smoke. In Goa, you don't smoke, just for your safety, because it's so kind of sketchy there at night and stuff like that. And I know that other people are a lot less careful than I am. I'm always very careful. I kind of just, I stay inside from, I would say, from 8. And some days, if you're with people and stuff, you can go out. But most of the time, I think it's better generally to stay inside. But that's also in places like Goa, in places like, in Rishikesh, it's no problem really. Because those places are so touristy, and there's actually a lot of police there, so that's not gonna be a problem. But yeah, man. Those are really just the things that I knew that I wanted to kind of bring into the podcast. The notes that I had written down, some of the most powerful things that I actually learned in India, and that I didn't really want to make, a YouTube video about. I felt like that would be a little bit, I don't know, pretentious, or I don't know. It just felt like kind of cringy to make for me, it felt cringy. I don't know why. So, yeah, that is what it is. Oh shoot, I've been doing this podcast for almost 40 minutes, so that's pretty good, and the camera hasn't died yet. Okay, it says about half an hour now, and a lot of people say that this camera, Canon Rebel series and all the way up to the 80D, that these cameras, they die after 30 minutes. But it doesn't appear to be dying just yet. Maybe there's still time for it to die. We'll see what happens. Another thing was, the battery. But it looks like a still full battery, which is kind of insane. So that's good. That's definitely a good, thing. So if I enjoy making these, I want to do them on the regular, it's kind of nice to know that your camera don't just bail on you, and you have to recharge the battery, or so that's very, very cool. I'm not gonna get a podcast studio, I'm still just gonna do it at home, wherever I am, in a hotel room or at home, in the house. And but then I can, get a good podcasting, set up. But I'm definitely not gonna, get a studio or anything. That's the thing with YouTube. I found that, investing money into YouTube is not the greatest idea, because for YouTube, for YouTube, the more portable everything is, the more pleasant of an experience it's gonna be. You don't want to overkill too much with expensive gear, and because the return from YouTube is so small, and the apocalypse is still fully alive. It's definitely still alive. I think it's a crazy, decision from YouTube to make, to say, if we favor certain creators, depending on what they talk about, because I understand that the algorithm is, just computer based and nothing is reviewed manually, but I just think, you gotta kind of take things case by case, and I just think that this, this bias, political bias, that there's clearly a political bias between, you can talk about something that's very politically sensitive to YouTube, and they will censor that, and I think we can all agree that that's pretty toxic. I mean, that's gnarly, because when it comes to that point of censorship, it's like, well, and now they're doing all kinds of other stuff as well. It's like, where do you draw the line? Because, okay, everybody, the camera does die after half an hour, so that is now confirmed. And it cut while I was talking, so yeah, I guess I'll have to just fix this real quick, but I think it's up and running now. But let's just take a 5 minutes. No, let's take a 3 minutes break. So 3 minutes. Give me just 3 minutes to fix this, and we will be back for the rest of the segment. Peace. Okay, guys, we are back. So that is definitely confirmed now that the myth, the legend of the 30-minute cut is real, guys. You guys, this is real stuff here. And yeah, I thought it might just have been deleted. That I've just been rambling for more than half an hour and it's just gone. But yeah, it's up and running now. It just cuts after 30 minutes and there's nothing you can do about that apparently. I don't know why there's a limit on there because, you know, the battery is still full, which I kind of have a hard time grasping how that's possible, but yeah, it just cuts. So I guess that you know, Sony is the way, really. Sony cameras, guys. The Sony Alphas. That's the shit that you really want to do, you know, if you want to avoid that, because I think they just have infinite recording there. Or something like, you know, the C200 or something, I think. The new, you know, the little bit older Canon, the big one. That's probably something you gotta do. So, I'm pretty surprised if anyone is still listening after that break and after, you know, my rambling and the cutting of the audio, but we're still here. And I'm actually just looking at all the new subscribers and all the new, you know, community here on YouTube, and yeah, I really missed you guys actually. I see that a lot of people were saying, you know, I made like a poll, what you like to see most this week, if you wanted to see the podcast or just the regular video, and 67% said podcast, and only 33% said regular video. So, and that kind of sums up how I feel as well about like how, I guess, inauthentic it feels for me to talk about spirituality and talk about heavy topics, you know, like big topics, or, you know, even just smaller things, but condensing all that into essentially what's, you know, a lecture, condensing what's a lecture into 10 minutes of like what I would call McDonald's content. Like, you know, it's like shortened up, cut in Premiere, more superficial content, which is based around ideas that are so intricate and deep. I just feel like that's something so ridiculous, you know. So I don't know if this podcasting is gonna work in the long run, but if not, then, you know, something else has to be figured out, because it just feels wrong. You know, you can't put the things that I'm trying to convey into 12 minutes. It's just not gonna, it's not possible. I see a lot of YouTubers trying to do that, and, you know, you always lose your audience, you always lose yourself along the way, because it's not gonna be quality, it's not gonna be the real thing. I think the authenticity, the, you know, that you can get with talking for an hour or 2 hours, you know, and I'm really hoping to be able to have conversations with really cool, inspiring people as well, to have these, you know, long conversations and stuff, interviews, all this, you know. I know a lot of really cool people, interesting people that I would want to ask a bunch of questions. But it's definitely the way that I feel, you know. I've really felt a burnout, especially since YouTube, you know, censors my channel so much, and every channel that deals with spirituality and psychedelics, it's always so much censorship. And I see straight up, you know, YouTube just, not so long ago, they took like 160 something, 200 subscribers or something, and they're just gone. And it's like, these people, they say that it was only spam accounts, but, you know, I just see a big, you know, engagement drop from that, like immediately after that. You know, just all the censorship, it's crazy. But yeah. But it's cool. It's social media, as much as it has toxicity and it has a lot of, just crazy stuff. It also, it what I like about it is the conscious aspect of it, that we are able to connect spiritual communities, because spiritual communities in real life are so awesome, and is the only reason why we're still here as humans, frankly. Like, to be honest, to be completely honest, the only reason why humanity survived capitalism this far is because we had bursts of anarchism, bursts of spiritual anarchism, and liberalism, of classic 60s, the revolution in the 60s, and the different kinds of revolutions that were there before and are coming now again. It's those things that saved all of our butts, is those times of things going a little bit better. And that's kind of what gives me hope, is I think when we think of saving the world, we think of everything happening right now and then it lasting forever. But if you take the times that were most, or the people who were most influential in terms of shifting the consciousness of this planet, you will see that those things happened actually in bursts, and they went away again, which sucks, right? But also the explosiveness, the compulsiveness, the extremeness of a revolution, and probably violence as well. Now the 60s was a peaceful revolution, but the violence that the government inflicts on those people, because that's what they do when people resist the damaging toxic systems, is they go and they get violent, right? And they kill the protesters. We see this going on in the world right now, right? So there's a lot of again, censorship, right? So it's kind of like having a peaceful revolution is definitely important, though I know a lot of people feel like you also have to protect yourself, whatever. But I'm just saying that it can get very hectic and chaotic in the energy behind those protest like revolutions. And so what I'm trying to say is it's not supposed to be taken out of context, but you should think that they can't last forever in that kind of explosiveness, because we want a peaceful world, and we don't want maybe the kind of energy that's behind that sort of, if we look at all the revolutions that has been, they have all impacted the world greatly, but because they went away again, and things fade back into different cycles, and then everything comes together slowly. Now the next revolution is happening, and I'm sure that after this revolution will happen, it will take a little bit dip down again, and maybe a war will happen, maybe singularity will come closer. But I think that God will always prevail. It's like kind of ridiculous to say, and it sounds extremely Christian, but the divine will always prevail. I really think so. Like, it is prevailing right now. The fact that teenagers, like, can you remember when you, like, bruh, can you remember when you were a teenager? Like, what were you doing when you were 15? Like, you surely wasn't freaking, meditating and, like, thinking that mala beads and, drinking ayahuasca was cool. You were definitely, doing some gnarly shit when you were a teenager. I know I was, I wasn't at all close to being spiritual. I did have my awakening when I was, 17, which is early, but now I see kids, or not kids, but, I see younger people waking up even earlier, and it's like, damn, it's pretty, I think it's beautiful how early people start to, we see a lot of change happening early, and this is kind of pretentious, because really I'm just as, I'm really just as negative about the world situation as anybody else is. We fucked the environment. We have like 5 years. I'm not gonna pretend to be all like rainbows and fluffy unicorns. I think it's bullshit. And I'm doing my part just as everybody can. But what I try to say to myself to justify it, is stuff like this. That we see bursts, we see coming and going, and it's always cycles. And now we're in Kali Yuga. Things will go up, things will go down, but I think that in the end, spirituality will prevail because we see these changes right now. We see those things, and that's how God has already won. Evil can't prosper for very long. Even within these hierarchies, these male dominant hierarchies, and structures. It's not even so much male dominance. It's not even. It's just. It's overall evil, right? I mean, it is male dominance, but it's pretty, satanic, really. And yeah, it's just like, it comes and goes, and that's how it works. Reincarnation, happiness and sadness, love and fear, and it's like that spectrum, that movement of the spectrum up and down, it's like surfing, and one complements the other, and vice versa. And it doesn't mean that you can't land in a place of comfort and actually being only happy all the time, or only enlightened. You definitely can, but it's just that when you go through those cycles a little bit of the pain and back and forth, you get the universe is re-emphasizing how important staying in that is, and it's like you shouldn't feel ashamed for embracing that, because anything can be seen as very personal and very, this is attacking my ego, and also anything can be seen as very impersonal and very collective. It's just how you view it. So a lot of the times you can quickly distance yourself from the shame by saying, I see what's going on in the world, right? And me feeling bad about that is nothing to do with me. But you can do the same thing in a healthy way when you feel that, feeling of like, oh, I'm not allowed to feel pain, right? I'm not allowed to be human. When you feel those emotions, you can, similarly, you can, take a stance of going into that shame and going into that dark place of like, I'm really not supposed to feel this way. Or you can go the other way around and you can say, you can feel, I accept this. I allow myself to be whatever I'm taking shape of. I'm water and I flow the way that I want to, and I'm not gonna go into the personalized view of it. You know what I mean? Like you can take the same kind of more healthy, impersonal like stance of it. This is all right to feel. This is okay that it's happening to me, just like it's okay that we are destroying the world, the earth, but it's not a problem. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like providing space for others. When are we going to learn to provide space for ourselves? Really, that's what it comes down to, is how well can you return the favor? Are you just gonna provide healing for others and neglect yourself, or are you gonna take care of yourself first and then give to others? Because giving others without having an empty cup is basically just self-destruction. masked, and this is what I see so much, is it's almost always these healer types that mask the self-destruction as, oh, I'm going to take care of others, because it's easier to take care of others. You know, we often say it's easier to judge others than to look at yourself, right? But similarly, it's a lot easier to heal others than it is to heal yourself, because most people hate themselves. And I think I do too in some way. I just don't see it, you know, and I've healed a lot, and it's not that big of a thing, but it doesn't mean that it isn't there. So I'm no better than you per se, but that's why I'm sharing this, is that, you know, we all have, you know, a little bit of self-destruction, a little bit of that, you know, and you gotta, again, it's waves, you gotta keep it in check, you know. As Terence McKenna said, if I'm gonna end this podcast with one statement that's gonna end this podcast, let's end this with, you know, a little Terence McKenna song. Actually, fuck this, we're gonna play a little Terence McKenna song, maybe. I don't know. Are we gonna do that? Are we not gonna do that? But I'm gonna end this with a Terence McKenna quote. Nobody knows jack shit about what's going on. And that is it, folks. That's one of the most meaningful things that I've ever heard, is because at the time I really needed to hear that, and that's been kind of my mantra ever since, because really nobody knows what the frick is going on, and everybody's pretending to do, but nobody knows what's going on. You know, everybody's kind of confused. Life is hard. Life is weird. We are all just kind of, you know, here, and it's all just, you know, everybody's pretending that waking up in the morning and having to brush your teeth and, like, you know, partake in these like weird rituals and, like, you know, just walk around on this planet isn't weird, isn't strange, you know. People have to, I can't believe that people actually pretend that this is normal, you know, because it's pretty damn strange. So let me see, try and see if I can remember that song. Well, actually, I'm gonna maybe play it, but maybe we're gonna get a copyright. Maybe we're gonna get a claim for this, but you know what? We don't give a shoot about that. Terence McKenna song. What's it called? Inside and Outside. Let's see if we can remember this. Inner and outer space are exactly the same. Okay, guys. First podcast. Peace and love to you all. I hope you have an awesome day. And remember to stay cool.
Slither with the snakes in the swamps of the primeval jungle, yeah. We can jump to the geometries of the future light sound. Because inner and outer space are exactly the same, yeah. When you start hearing voices speaking inside of your brain, yeah. Then you might start to feel just a bit like you're going insane, yeah, yeah. Inner and outer space are exactly the same. Now we can laugh to ourselves deep within the belly of the beast. We can raise our voices in heated discussion to no avail. From the sides of our minds more truly than from the front, we can begin to sense an alien intelligence taking shape from the board. I said inner and outer space are exactly the same, yeah. When you start hearing voices speaking inside of your brain, yeah. When you lies till it no longer does us any good. We can cling to our thoughts till we just can't do it anymore.